The store was busy that afternoon. Bright white lights shined from the ceiling. Soft music played in the background. Carts rolled across the clean floor. People were laughing, talking, and checking prices. Felt like a normal day. But sometimes normal days hide moments that change everything. At exactly 3:17 p.m., the glass doors at the front of the store slowly opened. A tall African-American man stepped inside. He looked around quietly before walking forward. He was wearing simple clothes, plain gray hoodie, dark jeans, old sneakers that had seen many long days. On his back, he carried a faded backpack. His face looked calm, but there was something heavy in his eyes, something tired. For a few seconds, no one said anything, but some people stared. A woman near the entrance paused while pushing her cart. A teenage boy whispered something to his friend. An older man standing by the fruit section glanced twice before turning away. It was not loud. It was not clear. But it was there. Judgment. From the security desk near the front door, Mark noticed him immediately. Mark had worked as a security guard in this store for 6 years. He believed he understood people. He often told his coworkers, "You can tell a lot about someone just by watching how they walk." When he saw the man enter, something inside him tightened. He leaned forward in his chair. "Keep an eye on aisle 7, he said quietly into his small radio. There was no reason. The man had done nothing wrong. He had only walked inside. The man's name was Daniel, but no one in the store knew that yet. To them, he was just another customer. Or maybe to some, something else. Daniel walked slowly toward the electronics section. He did not rush. He did not look nervous. He simply moved like someone thinking deeply. He stopped in front of a shelf filled with headphones. He picked up one box carefully. He turned it around. He read the back. His fingers traced the price sticker. Then he placed it back exactly where it had been. Mark stood up from his chair. He told himself he was just doing his job. But deep inside, he had already decided something about Daniel. And that decision followed him like a shadow. Daniel continued walking. He looked at small speakers. He checked his phone. Maybe he was comparing prices. Maybe he was reading a message. No one knew. But Mark followed. Not too close. Not too far. He pretended to fix a shelf. He pretended to check a security mirror. But his eyes never left Daniel. A young cashier named Emily noticed the tension. "Is everything okay?" she asked quietly when Mark walked past her. "Just being careful," Mark replied. "Careful of what?" Daniel moved to the clothing section. He ran his hand across a row of jackets. His touch was gentle, almost thoughtful. He stopped at one dark blue jacket. He lifted it slowly and held it in front of him. For a moment, his expression changed. His face softened. His eyes grew distant. It looked like he was remembering something. But from across the aisle, Mark did not see memory. He saw suspicion. 2 customers nearby began whispering. "Why is security following him?" one asked. "I don't know," the other replied. Maybe he did something. But Daniel had done nothing. He placed the jacket back carefully and moved forward again. He could feel it now. That feeling. The feeling of being watched. He did not turn around. He did not say anything. But his shoulders became slightly tense. His steps slowed. He was used to this feeling. The cameras above recorded everything. The bright black domes on the ceiling quietly captured each movement, each glance, each silent judgment. But no one watching those screens could see what Daniel was truly carrying inside him. They could not see the reason he came into the store that day. They could not see the photo saved on his phone. They could not see the memory attached to that blue jacket. All they saw was a man with a backpack. Mark's hand rested on his radio again. "I'm watching him," he whispered. The afternoon air felt heavier now. Conversations grew softer. The normal sound of shopping slowly mixed with quiet tension. And still, Daniel walked calmly through the store. He did not know that this small moment, this normal visit, would soon turn into something bigger. He did not know that every second was being recorded. He did not know that before the day ended, everyone in that store would learn a lesson they would never forget. Right now, he was just a man walking through a store. But to many eyes, he was something else. And sometimes the most painful stories begin not with actions, but with assumptions. Daniel felt it clearly now, that quiet pressure in the air, that strange silence that follows someone like a shadow. He did not need to turn around to know he was being followed. He had felt this before, in other stores, in other places, in other years. Still, he kept walking. He stopped near a shelf of small electronic items. Phone chargers, power banks, memory cards. He picked up one charger and looked at the price. He pressed his lips together slightly. It was more expensive than he expected. He placed it back carefully. Behind him, Mark stood near a tall display stand, pretending to check something on his tablet. But his eyes were fixed on Daniel's backpack. Why is he carrying a backpack inside? Mark thought. Many customers carried bags. Many wore jackets with large pockets. But for some reason, the backpack felt suspicious to him. His radio made a small cracking sound. "Everything okay?" another guard asked. Mark answered quietly, "Yeah, just watching someone." Daniel moved toward the home appliances section. He walked slowly, as if time did not matter. He paused near a small heater. He read the label. Then he opened his phone again. On the screen was a photo. He stared at it for a long moment. His fingers gently touched the image. His eyes became soft again. But from a distance, it looked like something else. Mark saw him using his phone and whispered to himself, "Maybe he's checking blind spots." The mind sometimes creates stories that are not real. Two young girls passed by Daniel and looked at him for a second before hurrying away. An older woman pulled her purse closer to her chest as she walked by him. Daniel noticed these small actions. He always noticed, but he stayed calm. He walked toward the children's clothing area. Bright colors filled the space. Small jackets, tiny shoes, warm sweaters. Happy music played from a nearby speaker. Daniel stopped in front of a rack of boys' jackets. His hand slowly reached for one. Dark blue. Size medium. He held it up carefully and looked at it as if it were something fragile. His breathing became slightly heavier. His eyes did not look suspicious. They looked emotional. He checked the price tag. He swallowed quietly. Behind him, Mark stepped closer. He now stood only one aisle away. Why is he in the kids section? Mark thought. His suspicion grew stronger without reason. Daniel gently placed the jacket over his arm and walked toward a nearby mirror. He looked at the jacket in the reflection. For a second, it looked like he was imagining someone else wearing it. He blinked quickly. Then something small happened. As Daniel adjusted the jacket, a loose paper tag slipped from the rack and fell to the floor near his shoe. Daniel did not notice, but Mark did. Mark's body became stiff. His heart beat faster. "That's it," he whispered to himself. He stepped forward quickly. "Sir." Mark's voice cut through the quiet air. Daniel turned slowly. "Yes. What just fell from your hand?" Daniel looked confused. "I'm sorry." Mark pointed to the floor. "That tag. I saw something fall." Daniel looked down and saw the small tag near his shoe. He bent down and picked it up. "I think it came from the jacket rack," he said calmly. It was already loose, but Mark's face was serious. "Sir, I need you to come with me for a moment." The words were not loud, but they were heavy. A nearby mother gasped softly. Two teenagers stopped walking. The air changed. Daniel froze for half a second. He looked around slowly. Not angry, not shouting, just tired. "I didn't do anything," he said quietly. "It will only take a minute," Mark replied, his voice firm. Daniel placed the jacket back carefully on the rack. He adjusted his backpack straps, and then he followed Mark. As they walked past other shoppers, Daniel could feel the eyes on him. Some curious, some suspicious, some uncomfortable. A child asked loudly, "Mom, what did he do?" The mother quickly pulled the child away. Daniel kept his head straight. The cameras above followed every step. In the security office, a small room with gray walls and multiple screens, the moment felt bigger than it really was. But sometimes small moments carry deep pain. Mark closed the door behind them. "Please place your bag on the table," he said. Daniel slowly removed his backpack and placed it down. His hands were steady, but inside something hurt, not because he was afraid of being caught, but because he was tired of being watched. Outside the small room, the store returned to normal sounds. Carts rolled again. Music played again. Conversations continued. But inside that room, silence filled the space. And on the screen in front of them, the truth was waiting to be seen. The security room was small and cold. There were no windows, only gray walls and 6 large screens showing different parts of the store. The soft, buzzing sound of machines filled the silence. Daniel stood near the metal table. His backpack rested in front of him. Mark stood near the door, arms crossed, trying to look strong and sure. But something inside him felt unsure now. "Please open your bag," Mark said. Daniel nodded slowly. He unzipped the backpack and opened it wide. Inside there were only simple things: a water bottle, a small notebook, an old wallet, a folded piece of paper. Nothing else. Mark stepped closer and checked carefully. No stolen items. No hidden boxes. Nothing. Daniel watched him quietly. "I told you," Daniel said softly. "I didn't take anything." Mark did not answer right away. Instead, he turned toward the screens. "Let's check the cameras," he said. He pressed a few buttons on the computer. The screen changed. The footage from 15 minutes earlier began to play. Both men watched in silence. The video showed Daniel walking into the store. Calm, slow, normal. It showed him in the electronics section, picking up headphones, putting them back. It showed him near the chargers, looking at prices, checking his phone. Then it showed the children's clothing area. The moment with the blue jacket appeared on the screen. Daniel reached for the jacket. He held it gently. He looked at it for a long time. Mark leaned closer. The footage zoomed slightly. You could clearly see the loose tag hanging weakly from the rack before Daniel even touched it. When Daniel lifted the jacket, the tag slipped off by itself and fell to the ground. Daniel never placed it in his pocket. He never tried to hide it. He simply did not see it fall. The video was clear. There was no crime. The room felt smaller. Mark's jaw tightened. He rewound the footage again, as if hoping to find something different. But every time it showed the same truth. Daniel stood still, watching his own movements on the screen. He felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and something deeper. "I didn't deserve this," he said quietly. Mark did not look at him. Instead, he kept watching the screen. Then something else caught Daniel's eye. "Wait," Daniel said softly. "Can you go back a little?" Mark paused the video and moved it back a few minutes. This time, Daniel pointed at the screen. "Before I entered," he said. Mark adjusted the footage to the outside camera. The screen showed Daniel standing near the entrance before coming inside. He was not walking yet. He was standing still, holding his phone. Mark zoomed in slightly. Daniel was looking at a photo on his screen. He looked at it for almost 30 seconds. His face on the camera looked different. Soft, broken, full of memory. Mark frowned slightly. "What were you looking at?" Daniel hesitated for a moment. Then he slowly took out his phone. He unlocked it and held it up. On the screen was a photo of a smiling teenage boy wearing a dark blue jacket. The same jacket from the store. "My son," Daniel said quietly. Mark looked at the image. The boy looked about 14. Bright eyes, big smile. "He loved that jacket," Daniel continued. "He wanted it for his birthday." Mark stayed silent. Daniel swallowed slowly. "But I couldn't afford it at the time. I told him maybe next year." His voice grew weaker. There was no next year. The words hung heavy in the room. Mark felt his chest tighten. Daniel looked back at the screen, where the footage showed him holding the jacket in the store. "Today would have been his birthday," Daniel said. "I came to buy it. Not for me. I wanted to donate it to a boy at the community center. Same age. Same size." The room felt colder now. Mark stared at the screen again. This time, he did not see a suspect. He saw a father. A grieving father. The silence between them was no longer tense. It was painful. Mark slowly leaned back in his chair. He thought about how quickly he had judged Daniel, how easily he had followed him, how sure he had been without any proof. The cameras had captured everything, but they had also captured something deeper, the truth. And the truth was not what Mark expected. Daniel placed his phone back in his pocket. "I understand you have a job to do," he said calmly. "But sometimes being watched feels worse than being accused." Mark finally looked at him. For the first time, he truly looked. Not at his clothes, not at his backpack, but at his face. And what he saw there was not anger. It was exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that comes from years of silent judgment. Mark took a slow breath. Outside the small room, the store continued like nothing had happened. But inside, something had already changed. Because sometimes the cameras do not just catch actions. They catch mistakes. And sometimes they reveal who is really being watched. The days after the incident did not feel normal for Mark. Every time the store doors opened, he felt a small pressure in his chest. He still stood near the security desk. He still watched the cameras. He still carried his radio. But something inside him had changed. Before, he believed he could quickly understand people just by looking at them. Now, he was not so sure. On Monday morning, the new training began. All staff members gathered in a small meeting room. Chairs were placed in a circle. No desks, no counters, just people facing each other. Mrs. Carter stood in the center. "This is not about blame," she said calmly. "This is about awareness." A trainer from outside the company joined them. She spoke about unconscious bias. She used simple words. "Sometimes," she explained, "we make decisions based on fear, not facts." Mark listened carefully. She showed examples on a screen. Photos of different people walking into stores. Different ages. Different races. Different clothes. "Who looks suspicious?" she asked the group. No one answered at first. Then someone said quietly, "It depends." The trainer nodded. "Exactly. It depends on what we believe inside." Mark felt uncomfortable. He remembered how fast he had decided about Daniel. No proof, no action, just assumption. Later in the session, the trainer asked everyone to share a moment when they felt judged unfairly. Emily spoke first. "When I started working here," she said softly, "customers thought I was too young to understand prices. They would ask for someone older." Another employee shared how people assumed he did not speak English well because of his accent. One by one, stories filled the room. Then Mrs. Carter looked at Mark. He hesitated, but then he spoke. "I followed someone without proof," he said honestly. "I thought I was protecting the store, but I was really protecting my own fear." The room stayed silent. No one attacked him. No one laughed. They simply listened. And for the first time, Mark understood what Daniel meant when he said he was tired of silence. That afternoon, Mark returned to his security desk. A middle-aged man wearing a large coat entered the store carrying a gym bag. He walked quickly toward the electronics section. Before, Mark might have followed him immediately, but this time he paused. He watched calmly. The man picked up a small speaker, compared two models, then walked to the cashier and paid. Nothing unusual. Mark felt a small sense of relief. Later, a young African-American teenager walked in wearing headphones and a hoodie. Mark felt the old habit trying to rise inside him, but he stopped himself. "Watch actions, not appearances," he whispered quietly. The teenager walked through the store, laughing at something on his phone. After 10 minutes, he bought a video game and left. Again, nothing wrong. Each moment felt like practice. Practice in patience. Practice in fairness. 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. Daniel returned once more. This time, he was not alone. He brought 3 teenage boys from the community center. They walked in together, smiling. Mark saw them enter. For a brief second, his old instinct tried to speak. But then Daniel looked directly at him and gave a small nod. Not cold, not angry, just respectful. Mark nodded back. He did not follow them. Instead, he greeted them. "Welcome," he said simply. The boys walked around excitedly, looking at shoes and jackets. They joked and pointed at different items. Daniel stood near them, calm and proud. After some time, they walked to the register and paid for a few discounted jackets. As they left, one of the boys looked at Mark and said, "Nice store." Mark smiled. "Thank you," he replied. It was a small moment, but it felt important. That evening, Mrs. Carter checked the daily reports. There had been no incidents, no complaints, no viral videos, only normal business. But something else had grown: trust. Mark sat in the security room again, looking at the screens. He realized that the cameras still showed people walking, shopping, choosing items. But now he saw more than movements. He saw individuals, people with stories, people with memories, people carrying invisible weight. He understood something clearly now. Being a security guard was not only about watching for theft. It was about protecting dignity. It was about knowing the difference between caution and prejudice. One decision had almost hurt someone deeply, but that same decision had also opened a door for change. And sometimes, change does not begin with loud events. It begins with quiet reflection. As the store lights dimmed that night, Mark turned off the monitors one by one. He thought about Daniel, about the blue jacket, about the lesson hidden inside that small moment. The weight of one wrong decision had been heavy, but the choice to change felt lighter. And tomorrow, when the security room felt very quiet now. The screens still showed different parts of the store. Customers walking, children laughing, workers scanning items at the register. Life outside was normal, but inside the small room, everything felt different. Mark slowly sat down in his chair. His hands were no longer strong and confident. They rested on his knees, still and heavy. Daniel remained standing near the table. Neither man spoke for a few long seconds. The truth had already appeared on the screen. It was clear. There was no theft, no crime, no bad intention, only a father holding a memory. Mark cleared his throat. I didn't know," he said quietly. Daniel gave a small nod. "You couldn't know," he replied. But his voice did not carry anger. Carried something deeper. Carried tired understanding. Mark looked again at the paused screen. It showed Daniel holding the blue jacket near the mirror. His face looked soft, almost fragile. That was not the face of someone trying to steal. That was the face of someone remembering. Mark suddenly felt embarrassed. Not because he made a mistake at work, but because he had made a mistake in judgment. He had decided who Daniel was before Daniel even spoke. The door to the security room opened softly. The store manager, Mrs. Carter, stepped inside. She was a woman in her late 40s, calm and serious. She had heard there was a situation. "What's going on?" she asked. Mark stood up quickly. "It's handled," he said, but his voice lacked strength. Mrs. Carter looked at Daniel. Then she looked at the screen. "Show me," she said. Mark replayed the footage from the children's section. The loose tag, the jacket, the moment it fell. Mrs. Carter watched closely. Then she watched the outside camera footage. Daniel standing near the entrance, looking at his phone, his face full of quiet emotion. She said nothing for a moment. Finally, she turned toward Mark. "He didn't take anything," she said calmly. Mark nodded. "I know." Mrs. Carter then looked at Daniel with a softer expression. "Sir, I am very sorry for the misunderstanding," she said sincerely. Daniel gave a small, polite nod. "It's not the first time," he said gently. Those simple words filled the room with even more silence. Mrs. Carter understood what he meant. She had seen similar situations before. Small actions that hurt more than people realize. "Would you please tell me why you were looking at that jacket?" she asked kindly. Daniel hesitated, then slowly explained again about his son, about the birthday, about the donation. This time, as he spoke, his voice trembled slightly. He was not used to sharing this story with strangers. When he finished, Mrs. Carter felt tears forming in her eyes. "I'm very sorry for your loss," she said quietly. Mark looked down at the floor. He wished he could go back 20 minutes and choose differently. Mrs. Carter made a decision. Please wait here, she said softly to Daniel. She stepped outside the room. A few minutes later, she returned holding the same dark blue jacket. She placed it gently on the table. This is for you, she said. Daniel looked confused. I haven't paid yet. You don't need to, she replied. It's our apology. Daniel stared at the jacket for a long moment. He ran his hand slowly across the fabric, the same way he had earlier. But this time, there was no one watching him with suspicion. There was only silence and regret. I don't want it for free, Daniel said after a pause. I came prepared to buy it. Mrs. Carter gave a soft smile. Then consider it a gift in honor of your son. Daniel's eyes filled with tears he had been holding back. He did not cry loudly. He simply blinked slowly. Mark stepped forward. I'm sorry, he said, his voice low and honest. I judged you without a reason. Daniel looked at him. For a moment, Mark expected anger. But Daniel only sighed. Sometimes, Daniel said gently, it's not about one moment. It's about many moments. Mark understood. This was not just about today. It was about years of being followed, years of being watched, years of quiet suspicion. The cameras in the room were still recording, but now they were capturing something else. A lesson. Mrs. Carter turned to Mark. We need to talk later, she said firmly, but not harshly. Mark nodded. Daniel picked up the jacket carefully. He held it close to his chest, not like a product, but like a memory. Before leaving the room, he turned back once more. I hope next time, he said calmly, someone like me can walk through the store without being watched. Then he opened the door and stepped out. The store lights looked the same. The music still played. Customers still shopped. But something had changed. Not in the building, but in the hearts of the people who had just watched the truth unfold. And sometimes that is where real change begins. After Daniel walked out of the security room, the store felt strangely quiet to Mark. The music still played. Customers still talked. Cash registers still beeped. But for Mark, the sounds felt distant. He stood alone in the security room, staring at the screen where Daniel had just been standing. The camera replayed the moment again in his mind. Daniel holding the jacket, looking at it like it meant more than money. Mark rubbed his face with both hands. He had done his job, but had he done it right? A soft knock came on the open door. It was Emily, the young cashier. Is everything okay? She asked carefully. Mark hesitated. Yeah, it's fine. But she had already heard whispers. People in the store had seen Daniel being escorted away. Some customers had recorded short videos on their phones. A few had posted them online. By evening, a small clip began spreading on social media. The clip showed only one part, Mark stopping Daniel near the children's section. It did not show the security room. It did not show the truth. It only showed suspicion. And people were angry. Another man being followed for no reason, one comment said. This keeps happening, another wrote. By the next morning, the store manager, Mrs. Carter, called a meeting. All staff gathered in the break room. The mood was serious. Mrs. Carter connected a laptop to the large screen on the wall. I want everyone to see the full footage, she said. Mark sat in the back of the room. He felt nervous, not because he was afraid of losing his job, but because he now understood something he had not understood before. The video began. It showed Daniel entering the store, walking calmly, looking at items, holding the jacket, the tag falling on its own. Then it showed the outside footage, Daniel standing before entering, staring at the photo of his son. The room was silent. No one whispered. No one moved. Some employees looked down at their hands. Others looked at Mark. But Mrs. Carter did not blame him in front of everyone. Instead, she paused the video and spoke calmly. This is not just about one person, she said. This is about how quickly we judge. She looked around the room. None of us want to hurt someone who is already carrying pain. Mark felt his chest tighten. He stood up slowly. I made a mistake, he said honestly. The room remained quiet. I thought I was protecting the store, but I wasn't protecting people. I judged without proof. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She remembered the look on Daniel's face when he was walking through the store. Not angry, just tired. Mrs. Carter nodded. "We will start new training next week," she said. "Training about fairness, respect, and understanding." The meeting ended, but the lesson stayed. Later that afternoon, something unexpected happened. Daniel returned to the store, not to complain, not to argue. He walked in calmly, holding a small bag. This time, no one followed him. Mark noticed him immediately, but he did not move. Instead, he walked slowly toward Daniel. "Can we talk?" Mark asked gently. Daniel nodded. They stood near the same children's section. Daniel opened the small bag. Inside were thank you cards. "I brought these for the staff," Daniel said. "I donated the jacket this morning. The boy at the center loved it." Mark felt relief in his heart. "I'm glad," he said softly. Daniel looked around the store. "I didn't come back for an apology," he added. "I came back because change only happens when people talk." Mark listened carefully. "I've been followed many times," Daniel continued. "Sometimes I ignore it. Sometimes I leave the store. Yesterday, I stayed." "Why?" Mark asked quietly. "Because I'm tired of silence," Daniel replied. Those words felt powerful. Not loud, but strong. Mrs. Carter joined them. She thanked Daniel again and told him about the new training program. Daniel smiled slightly. "That's all I wanted," he said. "Not money, not gifts, just change." As Daniel walked toward the exit, the same glass doors opened again. But this time, the feeling was different. He was not being watched. He was being understood. Mark stood still, thinking. The cameras above still recorded everything. But now he realized something important. Cameras can show actions, but they cannot show intentions. They cannot show pain. They cannot show memories. Only people can choose to see those things. That evening, Mark sat alone in the security room once more. He watched the empty aisles. He thought about how easy it is to assume, how fast suspicion can grow, and how much damage one small decision can cause. But he also thought about something else. Growth, change, learning. The video that could have hurt the store had instead opened their eyes. And sometimes the hardest lessons become the most important ones. Because what really happened that day was not a theft. It was a mirror. And in